Welcome to Grow My Etsy Shop podcast, the drips of knowledge you need to start growing.
Hey, welcome. So I'm recording this in the evening. I typically do these in the morning, but my wife's out of town, so I have all my kids tomorrow, and I don't think I'll have time to record a podcast, at least uninterrupted. Problem is, when I record podcasts at night, they tend to go off the rails. So brace yourself. So what I want to talk about today is some ad stuff. So ad accounts in general are a gut health check for your shop. And there's a lot of information that you can get on how Etsy's viewing your shop, how they're working with you through the ad account. Plus, Etsy made some updates to the ad account this week. Well, not this week, the beginning of the month. So 11 days ago. And I think we can talk about some of those updates. So let's actually work in reverse order. Let's talk about the updates, and then we'll talk about some of the gut health of an ad account. So we've had the ability to be able to promote our product through Etsy ads for a long time, but it's pretty recent that they started to kind of care about, or at least give us more of a choice on how we ran those ads. And so one of the first kind of dabble points that they did is they said, hey, tell us how you want us to run your entire ad account. And they gave us three options. Option number one was efficient. Option number two was greater visibility. Or option number three was lower cost per click. So when we look at those three options, we have to make a decision of what's going to be best for our ad account. There's pros and cons to all three. Greater visibility allows you to tell the ad account that I don't necessarily care. I don't want you, Etsy, to watch my budget for me. I want you to just promote something for me. And if it burns through my cash and I get no sales from it, that's my own fault. You're essentially taking responsibility for that and just saying, look, I just want you to promote me. Don't look at the data. Don't care about it. Promote me. The efficiency, which is the one that they recommend that you take, is a balance. So it's saying like, yeah, we're going to promote you, but we're also going to make sure that you're getting some results from this. And so if we're seeing that we're not really getting great clicks and things like that, we're going to take our foot off the gas and not spend your whole budget or something like that. And that's usually where we want to be. Hey, Etsy, if it's working, promote me. If it's not working, don't spend my money. That's why this is the most popular one. The lower cost per click sounds really tempting, which is like, oh my gosh, why would I not choose to have Etsy just find me the lowest cost per click? Well, the answer is it's not going to spend a whole lot of money to do it because it's optimizing on trying to find the perfect person that's going to click or the perfect search that's going to click. And so you're only going to be seen under really specific keywords. And so you might want to spend $100 a day and it's only going to spend $6. So that's those three. That's how that's going to work. 99% of the time, I shouldn't say 99% of the time, 90% of the time, you're going to choose efficiency when it comes to your whole ad account because that's what we want. We want results without burning our budget. So when would you choose the other two? Well, if you want greater visibility, that's usually because you're in a really saturated market. It's a seasonal product. So that there's a ton of traffic coming for this for a short period of time. So whether that's, let's just say your Father's Day, you're going to be like, look, I don't want to wait for this to ramp up. I want to be seen. And I think this is kind of like a little bit of a deeper way of looking at it, but it's when you don't mind if you're going to be seen inspirationally and detailed. So let me give an example of this. If you sold a cake topper and that cake topper was themed for Sesame Street, don't do it. You might get hit with copyright, but follow my analogy here. You wouldn't want to say greater visibility because it's going to promote your Sesame Street cake topper when someone is searching for just like birthday decor. So Jared Robinson, who's 38, might search birthday decor and then an Elmo thing pops up and you paid for this. And I'm no, I'm not going to, I'm no interest. And so that's why you don't want to do greater visibility because you don't want to necessarily be found under inspirational keywords when you have a themed product like this. But if you were selling a Father's Day gift, then you are less likely to care about those inspirational keywords because most people are going to be searching for Father's Day gifts, grandfather, stepfather, gift for a dad, all these different types of keywords that are, and you're just trying to like, look, I know if someone wants to buy a Father's Day gift, I'm a great option. And so that's when you would use greater visibility. The truth is, though, efficient spending is going to still probably work better. unless competition was super intense. So if a lot of people are selling what you're selling and they're paying for ads, that's where greater visibility could play a part to kind of help you in that. So that's when you would use the other two. So this is when the new Etsy update sort of starts to play a part in our lives. Because before, like I said, 90% of the time I'm saying, just use efficient spending. It's going to work. But this time what's happening with our update is we can now select individual listings and choose how we want to promote them. So we can have one that's efficient spending and one that's greater visibility and one that's lower cost per click and have them all run under the same ad budget. This changes things for us because now what we were saying from a blanket standpoint, we can sniper stuff. And so now what we want to do is we want to piggyback off of what our ad account is doing and be able to make adjustments to fix what it's doing. So I'm going to share some examples with you. So I need to throw out 2 disclaimers before we jump into this. Number 1 is there's lots of videos that are going to kind of go over, or podcasts or whatever, that kind of talk some ad strategy with you. This is going to be for those who are like, seriously spend some cash. So if you're dabbling, first of all, this feature is not even available to you if you're spending less than $25. So my thought is, if you're spending less than $25 in ads, you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast. If you're someone who spends more than that, this is a good podcast for you because this is who I'm talking to. So, grain of salt, guys. Is it grain of salt? Grain of sand? I can't remember. Number 2 is that Etsy's, anytime they let something new out, it can be a little clanky in the beginning. And so we don't always just want to jump in full trust on something. So you're definitely going to want to experiment anything that you're doing, but I'm going to give you some things to experiment with. Okay, there's my disclaimer. Also, this could cause loss of limbs, diarrhea, and hypoplastic left heart syndrome. So those are my other disclaimers. Okay, now let's jump into this. And shout out to anyone who knows what hypoplastic left heart syndrome is, because that is a real thing. So for most of us, we're going to have a handful of products in our ad accounts. It's very tempting to put a lot of products in your ad accounts. I don't recommend that you do that, because if you do something like this, it's really hard to manage. You're just kind of giving stuff to Etsy and be like, I hope it works. And if it doesn't work, you're like, I don't know why it's not working. And if it is working, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to not touch it because it's working, or I don't know what to do. But if you start with just like something that's very manageable, you can quickly get it to start working and then scale what's working. So I'm a big believer of, I try to avoid things that can compete against each other, not because it's going to be the end of the world, but just because at scale, I find that it starts to not spend. So if you're like for example, if you sell bracelets and you have 27 bracelets in an ad account, it doesn't spend. And so I find that you kind of need to start diversifying your keywords out a bit, targeting different things, turning off some of the keywords in some campaigns, leaving them on in others, so that way you're not cannibalizing what you're trying to pay for. Also, it's just that you're just giving, I think, for my own opinion, too much variables for Etsy to work with when you yourself have data of what's working. So you know what your best sellers are, you know what's working well for you, you know what people like to buy, and usually that's what you're going to want to try to promote. Okay, but then there's the argument of, well, Jared, what if I have something that I think people are going to like? For example, a new product. So for the most part, this is what I say. When you get a new product, let it sit for about a week organically and then kick it up onto some ads. Now, what happens so much for people is they'll have an ad account, let's just say it has 8 listings in it. They then get 2 new products out. They're super excited. They drop their new 2 products in. They put them onto ads. And at the end of 2 weeks, those 2 products have spent $1 each. And you're like, I want to promote this. And then for most people, when I do look at their ad accounts, there's 1 to 2 listings that are taking a majority of people's budgets. And sometimes those 1 to 2 listings can have lower ROAS connected to them. So meaning it looks like this. You have 5 products up. 2 of them have a 2 ROAS on them. And then the 3 over here have higher ROAS, but much lower spend on it. So it's hard to know, do I turn off my big ones? Because that's where all my traffic is coming from. And if I do, is it just going to force the spend to the bottom 3? Not always. So now we have this really cool option. And again, we're in test mode on this. But now we can say, what if instead of trying to turn off the ones that's sucking up all my budget with a little bit of a lower ROAS that I'm not happy with, and we just switch it to, hey, lower the cost per click. Because now what we're essentially saying is, hey, this ad set has a lot of data connected to it. It probably knows what keywords perform the best. And let's just focus on that. And so you can now turn that off and start to see some ROAS bump to what you're doing. Now, here's the question. Are you going to be getting as much spend as you were before? Probably not. But we're going to bump the ROAS up on it. And where you can have other listings that are getting the spend, because keep in mind, if you were to do this before to the whole ad account, this is where you would just be like, oh my gosh, I have a $50 budget. My thing's only spending $7. And so is it worth it? No. But now we can just say, hey, what about just that one listing that's taking up all my clicks? Just you and everyone else. Give it some spend, give it some spend, give it some spend. And so you can start to push things. What if there's something that's not getting spend and you're trying and you're trying and you're trying to get it spend and it's not getting spend? Greater visibility. Hit the greater visibility on it. See if it will pull. Now, I have a couple students in my mastermind. Just this last week, we were doing an experiment with it. We didn't see that turning on greater visibility flooded ad spend over. It's not like all of a sudden we flipped that switch and it was like, oh my gosh, this thing's just getting so much more than it was before. In fact, it wasn't much different with the greater visibility, but we are seeing that when we have it on lower cost per click, that it is lowering the amount of doors that's open under the keywords, which is helping the ROAS stay where it's, or be better than what it was at before. And so where we can pair this now with, hey, Etsy, you're spending all your money on these 2 listings, and I have all these listings down below that aren't getting anything. Hey, lower cost on these guys. And if you're watching on the video, I have my hands going on this. And then these ones, maybe 1 or 2 we switch on greater visibility and 1 or 2 we do on efficient spending, and we see which ones do best, and we can make some changes. What this does is it's giving us more to play with. It's giving us more options to try different things. But one of the biggest headaches I ran into with Etsy ad account is that I can't control where ad spend is going. So yes, I'm willing to spend $60 a day, but I don't want to spend $60 a day on that one listing. But I don't want to turn off that listing. That's always been a problem. It can now no longer be that problem. And that's something that I'm excited about. And it's something that I want you guys to experiment with and try it out and see what you can get out of this. Because if we can manipulate the budget a bit, this is where we can help really scale our ad account. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how the ad account itself is connected to the gut health of our store and how we can you get certain tells from the ad account. So I think doctors will work this way. When we're looking at gut health, there's just some symptoms of some things that you can be like, oh, that's probably connected to this or that's probably connected to that. Speaking of something that has nothing to do with anything, I had this neighbor, he's like 10 years younger than me. He walked out, the guy was walking like the Tin Man. He had his legs were, he wasn't bending his knees when he was walking. He comes walking over to me and he's like, hey, Jared, let's play some basketball. I'm going to go down to this church. We're going to play some basketball. Why don't you come with me? And I was like, dude, I don't want to end up walking like you. I can't. Yeah, this is a terrible pitch. You're walking like you just got off the short bus. And the dude didn't know what I was talking about. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? What do I mean? Dude, you're not bending your knees. That's the weirdest walk I've ever seen. You look like, if I only had a brain. No, that's the Scarecrow. But you know what I mean? And he completely was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, well, I feel terrible. This happened a couple times in my life. I met someone the other day and he had really long arms. And I said to him, oh my gosh, your arms are so long. Because they were like down to his knees. And he was like, no one's ever told me that before. I was like, what? How has no one ever told you that you have long arms? I said, you'd be an excellent swimmer because your arms are so freakishly long. And he was like, well, I am a great swimmer. I was on the swim team. I did really well. I'm like, well, it's because you got freakishly long arms. This has nothing to do with anything. Sorry. Let's get back on track. Okay, so before I derailed that, we were talking about how an ad account can reflect your gut health of the store. So a healthy ad account, because here's just boil it straight down. If you have a product that when the right person sees it, they buy it. That's your job as an Etsy seller. You're supposed to create a good product. And if someone is on your listing, they want to buy your product. If you have that, your ad account should reflect that, which means, hey, Etsy likes to promote me because when they promote me, people click on me. Etsy gets paid when people click. Then people buy. So if I'm under efficient spending, Etsy's both signals are being fired, which is people are clicking, people are buying. And this is what allows Etsy to feel comfortable spending your budget. So if Etsy isn't spending your budget, this is usually a sign that something is not quite there. Now, it could be demand. You might be trying to sell something that doesn't get that much traffic in a day. It could be that you have several listings bidding for the same keyword, and sometimes I can see that dams, oh boy, dam as in like the beaver dam. So now I don't want to have to put explicit on my on my podcast. I'm referring to the beaver dam. The spend, because you're just having things kind of cannibalize itself. Another reason why it won't spend sometimes is that you have a product that's taking a majority of the spend and it's just probably not doing as well as it could, or something along the lines of that. So nothing else is getting its spend because it's spending you aggressively in the beginning parts of the day and stuff like that. Where this is where some of the techniques we talked about before are going to make a difference, or going to help that, where you can put that to more of a lower cost, and then have that hopefully push some spend down. Okay. So if Etsy's starting to get a signal that or if we're trying to be efficient and we're not being efficient, that's usually when we start to see the ad spend not spend as much. So that there's a limit that everyone's going to have. You might be at $60 a day, $70 a day, $100 a day, and it's not spending $100 a day, but it's spending 80, 76, whatever. It's because it just can't stay efficient that long, right? And so things like Facebook, things like Instagram don't work this way. They will continue to spend your money regardless. And if you have something that's not converting well, they just charge you more for CPMs. Etsy just stops kind of spending your budget and putting other things in front. They start prioritizing other listings that aren't from your store. So people who are bidding for the same type of people. So this is why I say it's a gut check to your store. If you're seeing that you're not getting the spend and let's just say you have $13 and it's not spending $13, that's usually a sign of you need to do a better job at either attracting the click or winning them over in conversion. Another thing that it could signify is that you're not getting the right traffic. And this is where you can jump into the individual listing itself and click on views so that you're looking at the keywords that's coming in, and then you can see which keywords get the most views, and you can start to be like, for example, if you were selling a key holder and it had multi-functions on it, so it can hold your sunglasses, it can hold this, it can hold that, just this really cool, expensive entryway holder, and your top 10 keywords all say key holder, we might look at that and say, I think people are searching for a key holder, like something small to hold your keys. And when it's being shown something that's really cool and dramatic, but not necessarily what they're searching for. And so that's where you can kind of turn off some of those keywords and focus more on entryway organizer or something along the lines of that. If your ad account, I'm just going to keep firing from the hip here, so stay with me here. But if your ad account has one product that's getting a ton of spend and it has high ROAS, what do? We add more budget. You throw more money into this. I had met with someone today. Their ROAS was at, I think, 8, and they were at $47 a day. And I said, today you should move that to 60 with the intent to continue to move it up. And they were like, oh boy, $60. I don't know, Jarrett. I was like, bro, you have someone sitting in front of you that when you hand them $1, they hand you $8 back. What's our concern here? Luckily, we got to the bottom of it. She's like, I don't know if I want to work that hard. And I was like, okay, that's a legit concern. But for the most of us who are wanting to grow and wanting to see, I shouldn't say that she's not wanting to grow. She's just wanting to do it systematically, which is smart. But if we see something, if we can build something that we can hand money to and it can kick profit back, we're going to want to figure out how to scale that. So the mindset that we have on an ad account is we want to tackle it in sections. So this is where you hear me say, look, try to get a handful of products that don't compete against each other, that sell well, maybe some of them are new, and line them up. And let's look at those keywords, because what we don't want to look at is 5 similar products. We want to look at 5 products that have different keywords. And then what will happen is, if let's just say you're targeting bracelets and that particular bracelet just isn't working and it's getting some spend, and I'd like to get about 3x spend, which means if it's an $18 bracelet, I'd like to see about 36, no, it'd be more than that, 40, 50, whatever it is. I don't want to do the math. 47, is that what it is? I don't know. Don't judge me. Dollars before I'm like, hey, time to move on. And so then I move on. So I get that and I put another bracelet in there and replace it this way. Because what happens is eventually you find a bracelet that does convert well in ads and you're like, okay, this is actually working for me. Instead of, I don't know why my ad account's not working. I've thrown a bunch of bracelets in there and none of them seem to be working. You're testing each one, forcing spend to each one, and then making decisions from this. And so if you are feeling like, oh my gosh, my Etsy store overall isn't doing as well as it could, or is slumping, or when I look at my year over year, I'm down. One of the first places you should look is in your ad account, and you're going to see some tells in there. Oh, it's not spending. Why isn't it spending? Because usually, okay, maybe Etsy isn't promoting if it's not promoting you through paid, what are the chances that we're seeing that organic promotion? You know what I mean? We kind of have to look at it that way. And that's where we can start to tackle some stuff. So that's today's podcast. Yeah. Adios.